Hello, I'm Nina Warhurst and this is Mould on the Markets, our regular look at financial markets with our investment director, Russ Mould. Hello Russ, how are you?
I'm very well, Nina. How are you? Thank you for helping us out. Appreciate it.
No problem at all.
Sure.
So what should our advisors and their clients be looking at the moment?
Well, we've got the US Federal Reserve's latest meeting coming up on the 27th and 28th of this month, so first policy announcement of the year. That would normally hog the headlines. Let's face it, world's biggest central bank speaks. But the bigger story still is the Swiss National Bank's decision to break the franc's peg with the euro. The effects are still rattling round.
We don't usually cover currency markets on this, no.
Good reason normally.
So just remind us what happened. Why is this important?
Well, in September 2011, the Swiss Central Bank effectively devalued the franc, pegged it to the euro, drove the Swiss franc down by 8% to around the 1.2 Swiss francs to the euro mark. Chairman Thomas Jordan then jumped in and said, Swiss National Bank will buy unlimited quantities of foreign currency to keep the Swiss franc there, stop it going up in value. And as you can see from that big spike there, it worked. Swiss franc went down. Now on the 17th of this month, they gave up on that, presumably because they were tipped the wing. The European Central Bank was going to come out with quantitative easing designed to drive the euro down and swamp the world in cheap euros. So the Swiss franc has now settled at about 1 Swiss franc to the euro, actually 10, 12, 15% below where this farrago began 3.5 years ago.
And we saw some of the forex brokers go bust over this.
Yes, we have.
What about longer term implications?
Don't forget one hedge fund's gone down as well. But I mean, longer term, there are 3 takeaways. The first is that even if currency isn't part of long-term top-down asset allocation process, probably should be. The Swiss may have given up on this race to debase currencies, but heavily indebted nations, UK, America, Japan, Europe now, are trying to export their way out of trouble, inflate their way out of their debts, and to do that they need a weak currency. So that is going to play a big impact on any returns that people get from assets in those countries. Now, those countries with the healthiest debt-to-GDP ratios should, in the long run, have the healthiest currencies. Just ask the Swiss, debt-to-GDP of 35%, UK, US 80 to 100, Europe 100 plus, Japan 240% and keep counting, which is why the yen's going down through the floor right now. Long run, emerging markets, the brightly coloured bar here in this chart of all these flags, they're in better financial shape, and this chart actually looks at aggregate government and consumer debts to GDP, and then the emerging market nations still come out better, even if a lot of their companies have got some big dollar debts.
Okay, and what's the second long-term implication?
Yeah, and that's, I think, don't think central banks can control markets forever. You can't buck the market. Fundamentals will have their say no matter what anybody says, so don't rely implicitly on central market largesse to be a crutch for valuations or assets in your clients' portfolios.
So you've said keeping an eye on the debtors is one thing. Do not rely on the central banks. And what's the third?
Prepare for more volatility.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say. We've all been drugged slightly by this cheap, easy US money and UK money over the last few years. But since the Fed began to, or stopped adding to QE in October 14, volatility's picked up. Oil's collapsed, dollar's gone up, Swiss franc's been all over the shop. Now, this could be just the beginning. Since 1995, the FTSE 100 has moved within a day, open to close, 2% or more, over 400 times, or once every 13 days. Since the Fed stopped adding to the drug and making us all feel happy, that has gone up, it's happened 8 times already, every 6.6 days. So things have got an awful lot bumpier. Now, volatility on its own isn't a bad thing. Without price movement, there'd be no inefficiencies for clients to take advantage of. You'd never make a profit. But you can only take advantage and make those profits if clients' portfolios are sound and well diversified enough in the first place, and that's obviously the skill and the value add that advisors can bring.
Thank you, Russ.
My absolute pleasure.
That's Russ Mould on Mould on the Markets, and thank you, as ever, for joining us.